When you stop trying to hold everything together, something unexpected happens. The tension you thought was necessary disappears, and with it goes the resistance you didn't even realize you were creating. For a long time, holding on felt like responsibility. It felt mature. It felt like if you loosened your grip for even a second, everything you cared about would fall apart. But what you were actually holding was not life itself. It was fear disguised as control. Control always begins with a misunderstanding. The mind assumes that force equals safety, that effort equals protection, that vigilance equals love or responsibility. So it tightens, it plans, it braces, it monitors outcomes before they exist, and slowly, almost invisibly, that tension becomes your baseline state. You don't even notice it anymore. You just feel tired, restless, impatient, and strangely blocked. Nothing flows under pressure. When you try to control timing, you distort it. When you try to control outcomes, you lose sensitivity to the signals that guide you. When you try to control people, you end up reacting instead of relating. The mind thinks it's preventing chaos, but it's actually creating friction, internally first, then externally. This is why things feel out of place when you're gripping them too tightly. Attachment works the same way. What you cling to doesn't stay because you hold it. It stays because it's aligned. Attachment feels like safety because it's familiar. Even when something no longer fits, even when it drains you, even when it quietly limits your growth, the nervous system recognizes it. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. So you hold on, not because it's good, but because it's known. And life responds by repeating itself. Unresolved attachment creates loops. The same emotional patterns, the same dynamics, the same frustrations, just wearing different faces. You think you're moving forward, but something always pulls you back to the same internal place, not as punishment, as feedback. Life repeats the lesson until you stop anchoring yourself to what has already expired. Letting go breaks the loop. Not dramatically, not all at once, often quietly, often with relief before clarity, often with a strange sense of calm that arrives before anything externally changes. That calm isn't passivity. It's your nervous system exiting survival mode. Holding on keeps the body braced, shoulders tight, breath shallow, mind scanning, always preparing for what might go wrong. When resistance drops, the body gets the signal that it's safe to soften. And when the body softens, perception widens. You see more, you hear more, you feel less urgency and more accuracy. This is why peace comes before solutions. The mind believes solutions create peace, but it's the other way around. Peace allows solutions to appear. Calm clarity follows emotional release, not mental effort. The moment you stop fighting reality, your system stops burning energy on defense, and that energy becomes available for discernment. And with discernment comes alignment. Alignment isn't something you force yourself into. It's something that emerges when you stop defending outdated versions of yourself. Identity is one of the hardest things to release, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. You protect who you've been because it feels like survival. Even when that identity no longer matches your direction, even when it quietly sabotages your next step, the mind clings to it out of loyalty to the past. But you cannot align with the new while protecting the old. Outdated identities resist endings. They reinterpret fear as loyalty. They call stagnation stability. They frame growth as risk. And as long as you listen to that voice, life feels conflicted, pulled in two directions, 1 foot forward, 1 foot anchored behind you. The moment you stop defending who you no longer are, something clicks. You don't need to know exactly who you're becoming. You just need to stop arguing with the fact that the old version no longer fits. When that argument ends, energy frees up. Decisions feel cleaner. Boundaries feel natural instead of cruel. Waiting feels intentional instead of anxious. This is where the illusion of timing collapses. Life doesn't delay things arbitrarily. It responds to readiness, not desire. When you're emotionally attached, timing feels slow, heavy, frustrating. Because attachment creates urgency, and urgency narrows perception. You're watching the clock instead of listening to the moment. You're waiting in resistance. When you let go, timing accelerates. Not because life speeds up, but because you stop interfering with it. This is why breakthroughs often happen right after surrender. Right after you stop checking, right after you stop forcing, right after you genuinely release the outcome. It feels sudden, but it isn't. It was already ready. You were still holding on. Letting go reclaims energy. Attachment leaks power. It drains focus. It keeps part of your attention stuck in the past or projected into the future. When you release, the first thing you feel isn't excitement. It's lightness, less mental noise, less emotional weight. Hope comes later. Clarity follows space, and space attracts alignment. When your energy is no longer scattered, people show up differently. Opportunities feel more natural. You notice doors you couldn't see before because you were busy trying to force open the wrong ones. Direction emerges not as pressure, but as pull. This is the quiet miracle most people miss. Life was never broken. It only felt chaotic because you were resisting it. Resistance creates the illusion of disorder. Acceptance reorganizes perception instantly. Nothing external has to change for things to feel more coherent. Your relationship with reality shifts, and suddenly everything looks different. You stop fighting life and start cooperating with it. Cooperation doesn't mean resignation. It means responsiveness. It means acting without panic, choosing without urgency, trusting your capacity to adapt instead of your ability to predict. It means allowing life to meet you halfway instead of dragging it toward you. And when that happens, things don't snap into place like a movie ending. They settle. They settle into timing. They settle into clarity. They settle into a rhythm that no longer feels forced. You realize that the reason nothing was falling into place wasn't because you weren't trying hard enough. It was because you were standing in the way, tightening where you needed to soften, holding where you needed to trust, forcing where you needed to allow. The moment you stop doing that, life doesn't suddenly become easy. It becomes honest. And honesty is what alignment actually feels like. There's a moment that arrives quietly, usually after you've stopped arguing with yourself, where you realize something fundamental has changed. Not outside of you, inside. The urgency is gone. The frantic need to fix, explain, or force has softened. And in that absence of tension, you begin to see something clearly for the first time. Life was never asking you to push harder. It was asking you to stop bracing. Most people confuse letting go with giving up, but they are opposites. Giving up is collapse. Letting go is precision. Giving up is driven by hopelessness. Letting go is driven by clarity. When you let go, you're not abandoning responsibility. You're abandoning distortion. You're releasing the version of effort that was rooted in fear rather than truth. Fear-based effort is loud. It rushes. It overcommits. It overexplains. It tries to guarantee outcomes before they're ready to exist. And because it's rooted in anxiety, it never actually trusts the present moment. It's always negotiating with the future. Letting go ends that negotiation. When you release the need to control how things unfold, your relationship with uncertainty changes. Uncertainty stops feeling like danger and starts feeling like space. And space is where alignment lives. Space is where intuition becomes audible again. Space is where your system can finally register what's actually happening instead of what you're afraid might happen. This is why so many people feel a strange calm right after they stop trying. That calm isn't apathy, it's accuracy. It's your nervous system realizing it no longer needs to stay on high alert. And once the system calms, perception sharpens. You stop misreading signals. You stop chasing what doesn't respond. You stop investing energy into dead ends simply because you're afraid of standing still. Standing still, when done consciously, is not stagnation. It's recalibration. And recalibration changes everything. You begin to notice how much of your previous struggle came from pushing against the natural rhythm of things, forcing conversations that weren't ready, forcing clarity before the lesson had fully landed, forcing decisions from panic instead of alignment. You weren't wrong, you were early, or misaligned, or operating from an outdated internal map. Letting go updates the map. It's also where honesty becomes unavoidable. Without the distraction of constant effort, you start seeing what you were tolerating, what you were excusing, what you were calling normal simply because it was familiar. Letting go removes the noise that kept those truths buried. And that's often uncomfortable at first. Because clarity doesn't always arrive as relief. Sometimes it arrives as grief. Grief for how long you stayed, how much energy you gave, how deeply you tried to make something work that was never meant to. But that grief is not regression. It's release. It's the emotional cost of closing a loop. Once the loop closes, energy returns. You feel it subtly at first. Less mental clutter, fewer internal arguments. Decisions that once felt heavy now feel obvious. Not easy, obvious. You stop second-guessing what your body already knows. You stop overriding intuition with logic that was built to protect fear. And something else shifts too, your relationship with timing. You stop measuring your life against imaginary deadlines. You stop panicking when things don't happen on schedule. You realize that the schedule you were following was never real. It was borrowed from comparison, expectation, and pressure. Letting go frees you from borrowed timelines. That's when things begin to arrive. Not all at once, not dramatically, but consistently. Conversations align. Opportunities surface without strain. People respond differently to you, not because you're trying to be different, but because you are. You're no longer pushing energy outward in search of validation or certainty. You're grounded, present, less needy, more precise. And that precision is magnetic. Life responds to coherence. When your inner state stops contradicting your actions, momentum builds naturally. You don't have to chase what's aligned. It moves towards you because you're no longer blocking it with resistance, desperation, or over-attachment. This is the part most people misunderstand. Alignment doesn't mean everything feels good. It means things make sense, even when they're challenging, even when they require courage. There's a difference between pain that drains you and pain that refines you. Letting go helps you tell the difference. You stop suffering unnecessarily, and as that happens, your sense of power changes. Power no longer feels like control. It feels like choice. You choose where to invest energy. You choose when to engage and when to step back. You choose honesty over harmony when harmony requires self-betrayal. This is where self-respect stabilizes, not the performative kind, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't announce itself but is felt in every decision. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You stop negotiating your needs. You stop shrinking to maintain access to spaces that don't nourish you. Letting go simplifies your life because it removes what was never meant to be carried. And once you experience this level of internal alignment, something becomes very clear. The chaos you thought was external was largely internal resistance playing out in the world. When resistance drops, the world doesn't magically change. Your interpretation does. And interpretation shapes experience. This is the final shift. You realize that life wasn't withholding, it was responding. Responding to your grip, responding to your fear, responding to your inability to release what had already ended internally. The moment you stopped clinging, life didn't punish you. It adjusted. It met you where you actually were, not where you were pretending to be. And from that place, things don't need to be forced into place anymore. They fall, gently, naturally, in ways that feel earned, not chased. You're no longer trying to make life work. You're letting it work with you. That's the difference. That's why everything starts to fall into place. Not because you finally did something right, but because you finally stopped doing what was wrong for you. You stopped resisting the truth of your own experience. You stopped demanding certainty where trust was required. You stopped holding on to structures that could not support who you're becoming. And in that release, life had room to move. Not against you, with you.